What's up, everybody? We are in full out vacation mode here. Barely any notice. A last minute live setup is not fully figured out. We just walked into the hotel room. We've been at the park at Universal all day. But I have been following on Twitter. I do know what's going on. And I have some real thoughts about what the jury is thinking at this point. I think we know more now than we did even yesterday. So I got about 20 or 30 minutes. We're going to talk about it. We're going to answer your questions, ease some of the angst, hopefully talk about what the lawyers and the clients think in situations like this. Make sure you guys hit that like button and let's get into it. All right. So the jury is now going on 15 plus hours and 3 days in deliberations, partial days, full days kind of put together. And at this point, what I'll say and what I'll start off with is I am pretty confident that they are not being methodical and going through certain pieces of evidence and reading these instructions over and over again and trying to dissect what is said and going through the verdict forms and going through all the sheets. I am pretty confident that is not what's happening at this point. Now, that may be obvious. I know some people have still been saying that. That's a question I asked yesterday after they went home without coming to a verdict. That's no longer a thought in my head. It really only comes down to a couple things. I really think the jury basically has two questions they have to answer. My guess is they went through and they probably talked about the different elements and what evidence was used to prove it, what evidence was used to poke holes or create reasonable doubt. And my guess is they've discussed the two overarching themes, right? Did Karen Reed do this to John O'Keefe, or did somebody inside 34 Fairview do it and cover it up? And did the cops cover it up, right? Those are the two major scenarios they're presented with. And my guess is that is most likely what the big discussion points are. But it really boils down to two questions, okay? It boils down to two questions. And I think, dang, I had it up. I had the three charges up. We don't need to read through them. You guys have kind of already read through them before. But maybe it'll help to read through them. Let me pull it up again real quick. I think it was NBC Boston has a good write-up on this that kind of breaks it down in a way that I think makes it easy to visualize for us. So let's take a look at it together. All right. So here are the charges she's looking at. Let me share them to the screen, right? That's what we like to do here usually. Can't see them like that. All right. So let's talk through these charges and talk about kind of the two major questions before this jury. So first, we talk about the second degree charge. First, that Karen Reed caused O'Keefe's death and that she intended to kill or cause grievous bodily harm, which is a serious bodily injury, or intended to do an act in the circumstances known to her. A reasonable person would have known and created a plain and strong likelihood that death would result, meaning she knows it was dangerous. She knows death could result from the action she was taking, and she still intended to do that action, right? So that's one of the major questions in that charge. Then is manslaughter. She operated a motor vehicle, did so on a public highway. Operating the motor vehicle was under the impact of intoxicating liquor. While operating the vehicle, she did so recklessly. That would be dangerous for other people. And that, here we go, she caused the death of another person with that vehicle. That's the important part, with that vehicle. Then we have leaving the scene, the personal injury with the death. These are imperfect explanations, but they're just kind of summaries. She operated a motor vehicle on a public highway and did knowingly collide with John O'Keefe. Okay? So the obvious and biggest question is, did Karen Reed hit John O'Keefe with her car? That is the number one and biggest question. If the answer is no, it is a very simple not guilty verdict. It is a very simple check mark. It should be very simple for this jury. They should be able to figure it out. We should have a verdict by now, right? If it was that simple and if they all agreed on that question. So I think it's clear at this point. I'm not breaking any news. It's not rocket science. I'm not a savant. But I think at this point, we can pretty fairly assume that all the jurors do not agree on that answer. So if they don't agree on whether or not Karen Reed hit John O'Keefe with her car, I don't even know if they've gotten into the intent question yet, because that's really the second question. If she hit him with her car, did she intend to do so, intend to hurt him, intend to kill him? Because if she did hit him with his car and the answer is yes to that, and they get to the intent question, then they start parsing through, okay, we know she's guilty, but what is she guilty of? Okay, and that's the second question. And I think if they all agreed that she hit him with her car, we still would have gotten to a verdict. We still would have a guilty verdict, and 15 plus hours is plenty of time to go through and discuss which of the lesser charges she should be charged with, even if they don't agree on intent. And my guess is, okay, and this is a guess based on researching some jurors in our kinds of cases and going through some compromise verdicts that are sometimes frustrating, but sometimes you understand them, that if they all agreed she hit him with her car, but they all don't agree on intent, the way these charges are set up, there's perfect compromise. You could go with manslaughter or involuntary manslaughter. You throw away the lowest charge, you throw away the highest charge, and you come up with something in the middle. And even if everybody doesn't perfectly agree on intent or unintentional hitting him with her car, they would usually be able to come to a verdict over the 2.5 days they've been talking through this. Okay. So that leads me to believe that everybody in there does not agree on the first and ultimate question: did Karen Reed hit John O'Keefe with her car? So what does that mean as far as a hung jury, as far as a partial verdict, or I should say a verdict on a lesser included, or if they, like we talked about yesterday, based on some of the issues with the verdict slip, that they could potentially say not guilty of second-degree murder, maybe even not guilty of manslaughter, and then a hung jury on involuntary manslaughter or leaving the scene of the accident or some lesser included charge, right? And to me, if they can't come to an agreement on whether or not she hit John O'Keefe with the car, they're going to hang on all charges. It's going to be really difficult to have somebody agree or even get to the intent element if they don't agree she hit him with a car. Obviously, it's possible. They could say, we think she hit him, but we don't think it was intentional. And maybe some people would push for at least not guilty on the second-degree murder charge. But if there is a real holdout, and people have started to guess, and I get it, and I understand, based on this timing, I understand how people start to get antsy and people start to get nervous. There could be one holdout, there could be multiple holdouts on whatever side, right? We know it's some kind of split at this point is what it feels like. First off, it doesn't mean they won't be able to come to an agreement. It doesn't mean they won't be able to come together. We know there have been verdicts that have taken 24 hours plus. We even discussed one yesterday, Kyle Rittenhouse. 24 hours plus to come to a not guilty verdict. So it is possible, and all hope is not lost, and it doesn't guarantee a hung jury. But on the other hand, you guys all tell me, I know I always say a hung jury is very unlikely. It's always possible, but very unlikely. The situation we're in now, where it continues to go days, especially tomorrow, especially if they don't come up with a verdict by Friday, and we go into the weekend, and we go into a holiday week, right? When we go into a holiday week, now people start to get nervous. Now it conflicts with people's schedules, potentially other trials, other court hearings, things like that. That's where we can really get to a situation where maybe there is going to be some kind of Allen charge, some kind of encouragement to the jury. We really need a verdict. I don't know if either side would object to that. I kind of think the defense usually objects to that, or if there's going to be somebody that objects to that, it's usually the defense. In this situation, I think Karen Reed's lawyers want a verdict. I think Karen Reed wants a verdict. I think they have the upper hand. I think they think if there's a straw poll that she would be in the lead. Now, if there is a hung jury, I've gotten some other questions. I'm going to answer some of the questions you guys have thrown in, but you guys have sent a bunch of questions on Instagram and Twitter too that I want to kind of get to, because I think it's really, really interesting. Anybody that's offended by what I'm wearing, apologize. Vacation mode. I'm going back to the pool after we do this. Been out at the parks all day. So you're lucky you're not sitting next to me. I've been outside sweating all day. Welcome to the new members that joined during this random live. This is not usually how they are. Usually we've got more prepared. Usually we've got some court to watch or listen to. Ron said, new sub here. You have made trials interesting. Have a great vacation. Thank you, Ron. And more to come. So make sure you guys all subscribe and hit that reminder bell because there's still going to be more to come after this. We'll react to it. We'll break it down. We'll talk about juror interviews if they happen. Don't worry about us, Peter. Enjoy your vacay. I'm not worried about anything. I enjoy talking about this stuff with you guys, and I always think it's interesting to hear your thoughts and to kind of tell you where I'm at. Because, again, I'm not in the room. I don't know what's happening. I don't know what the jury's thinking. But based on some experience and talking to some jurors and having some trials like this, there are certain things that I think are a lot less likely now that it's been multiple days. Remember, the mob used to run the East Coast. If this is a cover-up, what are the chances someone on the jury has been bought? It's always possible. I mean, just to think about like Lucky Laughlin, the tow truck driver, even he had some connections and knew the Alberts and was going to do him a solid to not turn in the fact that he said he saw a car parked out front, which wasn't supposed to be there. Is there someone on the jury looking to do a solid for them? I don't know. I'm not going to accuse anybody of that. Bling is the new black. So hard to watch. Wish you were more attractive. Okay. We got to save this one. Save this one to read later. Uncivil, what's up, Kurt? The jury is thinking dur. Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's like they're dumb. And I'm not saying that's what Kurt's saying at all. Maybe it is what he's saying. I don't know. I'm not putting words in Kurt's mouth. But I do think that if there are jurors like this, which if you look, there's a certain percentage of people that have thought guilty. There's a certain percentage of people out there on Twitter that think she's absolutely guilty. If one or two of them end up on the jury, I will tell you right now, go look. Actually, don't look at my mentions. You will not have fun doing that. But if you see my mentions and people going at each other, they're like, this proves that. And they're like, were you even watching the trial? This proves that. And it's like, were you even watching? The expert clearly said that. The expert clearly said this. And if the search didn't happen, then it obviously was Karen Reed. And it's like, oh, the search doesn't matter for this person. Your expert was horrible. You could not pay them to agree on this decision. So that's why I think like legitimately, just like legitimately there are people out there arguing about this case, legitimately that could be what's happening back there. And if that is the case, then maybe we don't get to a verdict. But, and again, this is what lawyers do. We kind of bounce back and forth as we think it depends, this or that, this or that. Do you know anything about the makeup of the jury? I don't, but people were posting about it in the chat, so you can take a look there. So if it was volatile, if it was anything like my Twitter mentions, right, or comments, if it was that nasty and angry, I think we would have heard something from this jury. I think they may have told the judge. And if you remember back, it doesn't take that long ago to remember the YNW Melly case. Go back and watch the videos. You don't actually have to. I'm going to summarize the important part for you here and how it applies to this. But if you go back and look at those videos of when we're talking about the jury deliberating, and pretty quickly, I don't remember how many hours it was, they're like, we're not going to come to a decision, Judge. Judge sends them back. It's like, please do. This is really important. We don't want to waste time. We don't want to waste money. And so he sent them back, and they still couldn't come to a decision. And they were pretty adamant. And it felt like they didn't try that hard. Then later, turns out, some rumblings, some whispers, there was one adamant holdout who wasn't very nice or kind or respectful, maybe, to some of the other jurors' thoughts and feelings and where they were. And didn't really respect how the other jurors potentially saw this case and saw this verdict and how it was going to go. And they told the judge, it ain't going to happen, Judge. You can send us back there as many times as you want. We'll sit back there as long as you want. She actually starts flipping other jurors, potentially, if you believe some of the reports. But if that was happening here, if it was visceral, if it was vile back there, if it was Twitter or Reddit back there, I think we would have heard about it. I think the jurors would have written a note to the court saying, I don't think it's going to happen, Judge, and we haven't. So maybe that gives us hope they're working through it and they have some legitimate issues. Maybe they are arguing about intent at this point. Maybe they've gotten through. We all agree she did hit him with the car. I don't know. But I do think they're still working. I don't think it's completely deadlocked yet. And if we also have to remember and draw from our experience from hearing from jurors, which this is exactly what lawyers do, guys. We draw from experiences in other cases and what's happened to us and our colleagues and what we're watching and seeing around the nation. We look back to Chad Daybell and we heard from those jurors. They made up their mind. They had their decision, and what did they do? They wanted to go home and sleep on it. So is that what this jury did? They come up with their answer today, and they said, this is very serious. Let's go home. Let's sleep on it. Let's come back tomorrow. And will we get a verdict tomorrow morning? And everybody's like, haha, see, I told you. I always knew they were going to get a verdict. Maybe. The fact is we don't know, but we also don't know, or we know that hope is not lost yet because the jury hasn't said it. And until they say we can't come to a decision, let's still hope. They're back there, they're working, they're trying to figure out what the right answer is and if they can get everybody to agree, because that's really important for everybody. Okay, a lot of questions piling up. The complex nature and mess on the verdict sheet by Bev. This is why they are in the woods and why I was in the 15% hung. Amy, if it's hung, will she have to pay for her defense all over again? So I'm glad I read these because this is one of the questions I was asked that I want to answer that I find interesting. So before I answer it, let me set the stage for you and see what you guys think. Okay? So let's say it is hung. And let's just say, for argument's sake, half the jury thinks she's guilty, half the jury thinks she's not guilty. What should happen? Right? Half the jury thinks she's guilty. I think it's fair for the Commonwealth to retry the case, bring charges again. If she has to retry the case and do this all over again, do her lawyers have to work again for another 8 weeks? Do they have to take time away from their family, from their practice, do their job, what they're good at, and work for another 8 weeks? Obviously, the answer is yes. So what happens? How do we deal with that? The answer is the client has to pay for it again. It sucks. It really sucks. It's happened to us a couple times. It's happened to us a couple times where we've tried the case, lost, appealed, where the client has to pay us to appeal the case. That's not included in the trial fee. They pay us to represent them. They pay a trial fee. They pay us to appeal. We won the appeal. Yay. Guess what? Another trial fee. It's like building a house, right? If a contractor builds you a house and then you want him to build you another house, you got to pay him to build you another house. It sucks. Trust me, it sucks. I get it, and I hate it. But it's really the only way it makes sense. In any other, avenue or way that we work, everybody would expect to pay for it a second time, as much as it sucks. Now, what it really sucks for is if she really didn't do it, it really is a cover-up, and she has to spend even more money. And that all comes into play, and I'll just tell you, a hung jury makes her civil case later, if there is one, less of a slam dunk. A quick not guilty verdict would have been the best thing for her civil case, but a not guilty verdict at all across the board would be very good, obviously, for her civil case. Yes, I know there's a GoFundMe. I know there's, supplemental stuff coming for her, and I get it. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying it still costs the trial fee again. Now, of course, any lawyer that wants to work for free can handle the case pro bono. Of course, they can handle the case pro bono if they so choose. I don't think they should be forced to do it. I don't think they should be guilted into do it. I'm not saying, and I don't think any of you necessarily do. It doesn't mean you don't believe in the cause just because you make money off of it. I hope everybody believes that as well. If you don't, I get it too. But I promise you, they're not working for their other clients very much, at least during these 8 weeks. Doing a live on vacation. Awesome. Yes, Groot. Chris, if hung, can the feds come in after and stop the retrial? I don't necessarily know that they can. I mean, yes, I think some of their actions would prevent a retrial. Yes, if they take certain actions. Ashley, I wish I was a fly on the wall. Oh, it would be interesting. There's a reason we don't record any of this. Jesse, can the judge give the Allen charge without the jury saying they are deadlocked? If I was a lawyer, I would object to that. If they're working and they think they're doing what they need to do to get to the verdict, let them work. Let them work. I would object to any time limit or anything like that at this point, as long as they are working. Usually, I would never be in favor of an Allen charge unless they tell us they're deadlocked. And in a civil case, we always try to push them to get a verdict. We always do everything we can to push them to get a verdict. Because I farm. This is a very confusing case. It's an easy not guilty for us since we know the case. They went in knowing nothing, still have faith in not guilty. Yeah, I went in knowing pretty much nothing, I will say. But I do think it's really hard when you're actually the person making the call, looking at John O'Keefe's family, thinking you want to help get justice for him. Because we heard every single person in the Chad Daybell case talk about getting justice for the victims. Polling the jury. Peter, you called Jackson's closing masterful, yet at other times you question his handcuffing the defense to the cover-up. He should never have cuffed his defense to the cover-up. Yes. So I said his closing was really good. What I called masterful, I think, in the past was his connection that the jury would know the third party a third-party agency hired those experts. I thought that was masterful personally. I thought his closing was really good. I didn't love the strategy overall for the defense to go all in on the cover-up as opposed to all in on reasonable doubt, and the cover-up being a reasonable explanation for what happened, although we don't have to prove what happened. They do. I like couching it that way better. But I will tell you, a lot of people in the world, a lot of people in this chat, lay people are on the jury. They loved the story, the storytelling. It was very cohesive and you could follow it. And I thought that was a really great storytelling example in closing argument. Didn't use a lot of law, didn't use a lot of technicality, didn't explain how this should be an easy not guilty verdict. He explained it in a way that he thought it was an easy cover-up call. And it was easily something that happened in 34 Fairview. And I don't necessarily agree with that. So, if I had to pick, I could probably pick on more likely than not. I do agree with the defense's theory. But if I had to call the defense's theory or the prosecution's theory beyond a reasonable doubt, I wouldn't be able to call either. But I am very confident in my not guilty vote because I think the defense experts proved John O'Keefe was not hit by a car. So I think the prosecution fell way short of holding their burden and proving this case. Thank you, Julianne. Azam, they want to make sure the lawyer reaches 400K. Yes. Subs before coming in for the verdict. Just kidding. Enjoy the vacate, Peter. Yes, please subscribe if you guys haven't already. We are so close to 400K, which is insane. Alyssa, if I'm on the jury holding out until Friday morning, long weekend deserved after 10 weeks of trial. Kristen, thank you for taking the time on your vacay. I saw a list of big trials and most not guilty verdicts were longer than 10 hours. Guilty verdicts about 4 to 6. Do your things the time is a good sign? So I always think longer time is better or more likely to be an acquittal, but it's gone both ways. Longer doesn't automatically mean it's going to be an acquittal at all. Usually 2-3 hours is a guilty verdict. In this case, I feel like if it was 2-3 hours, we would have all been thinking a quick not guilty. So it almost works in the way that maybe the longer time is better for the underdog, right? Maybe longer time is better for the unexpected, which usually is the defense in these cases. Charlie, I want your hat to go with my tie-dye. It is an awesome hat. It's my vacation hat. I'll be wearing it on the golf course tomorrow. Murder Candy Podcast. I was scrolling, saw you in that shirt, clicked so fast and haven't heard a word you said. Oh, boy. Felicia, jurors need a lawyer class before a trial. The judge going through the instructions was confusing. Your channel has taught me so much. Thank you. So here's what I'll say. When people ask me what I like about my channel, what I like about what's happening here, this is one of the things I love. If jurors could go in understanding the system a little bit better before they have to do their civic duty and make the ultimate decision in multiple people's lives in these cases, and a lot of people have reached out to me before they went to jury duty that they're excited and they feel like they're ready regardless of what it is to be fair and impartial, that is awesome and makes me feel great. Christy, let's not forget it's only 15 hours, but feels longer day-wise. It doesn't help that they had a hard stop each day because of one juror. Yeah, certain cases that they go till 8 o'clock, it just seems like it's going faster because we're all living our normal lives. KN Wags, maybe the jury debriefed, then got to work. If they had a verdict today, decided to wait until Friday so they could go rest for the weekend out of the public while the world debates their verdict. Yeah, could be anything. Leslie, the dog bite alone equals reasonable doubt. Yeah, and I think for some people that's the big issue. April, did I miss the verdict? Doctor's appointment all day. No verdict, April. No verdict. Linz, is it possible the feds have the jury room bugged in case of a bad juror? I sure hope not. That would be a total violation of everybody's rights. I wouldn't want it, even if, it helped out in some way. No, thank you to that. We don't need the feds bugging stuff like that. Bethany, sorry if you talked about this already, but it's been bothering me. Did Bev pick the four-person before they picked the alternates? If so, seems odd. I can't remember. I think so, but I can't remember. And I don't know, because again, that's different than what happens in any of the jurisdictions I do it in. So I don't know what would happen if, the four-person would have been the one they booted as the alternate. Wafa, Peter, the jury is doing what they need to do. It's their duty to deliberate. But can you please ask these crazy KR following to stop abusing JOK? Love your coverage. So I haven't seen a lot of that. I haven't seen anybody abusing John O'Keefe on my channel or through any of the comments. Obviously, that's not something I'm about, not something I want, not something I support or promote. I can't control what everybody thinks and believes, right? There's a lot of wild opinions and thoughts on both sides of this case. Julianne, thank you, Peter. Love your analysis. Thank you so much, Julianne. T-Shaw, do juries typically only work 5.5 hours a day? No, especially when they're deliberating. Usually they work longer because the court will provide lunch, dinner. Paula Z, I feel absolutely sick. How can they possibly think she hit him with that car? But happy vacation, Peter. Yeah, I mean, there are people on Twitter that have explained to me ways that make no sense that it could have happened. But again, if it makes sense to one juror, then it matters. Regardless of what we think, it matters. Robert, you don't even need explicit pressure. If I'm a juror, I have to go out and live in a town policed by the law enforcement on the stand. Who am I? Who am I more worried about post trial? The entire mass law enforcement community or Turtle Boy guilty is safer. I mean, I think the defense had to discuss this. They had to discuss this before going forward with this theory. But then again, if you vote guilty here, then you better be scared, because if they want to do it to you, then you can't expect any juror to do differently. And that's what we say. When I talk to people, and I've talked to like high schools and colleges and stuff, people think it's funny not to show up for jury duty. I said, how would you feel if you're an 18-year-old dude and you don't want to show up for jury duty and you're the criminal defendant and none of your peers, nobody that looks like you or understands what you go through every day shows up for jury duty? That would suck, right? If it's just a bunch of, older people that look down on you like you're a punk kid. Let's teach this punk kid a lesson. There's no punk kids on the jury. Joking about punk kids, of course, but people that won't think you're a punk kid. So do your civic duty. Go do what you think is right and how you would want somebody to treat you. So would you want somebody to be like, I'm worried about law enforcement, so I'll go along with, even though I think it's a cover-up? Well, then that could happen to you. Me and Dab are worried there might be 1 to 2 stubborn jurors that, despite overwhelming evidence, believe in the institutions of police in conjunction with not liking Karen Reed. That's possible. Kelly, in my opinion, Bev's verbiage about the lesser charges, not necessarily the form, has confused them. April, sorry, I got it now, but I do think it would be yesterday. She'll get off, I think, but I think she's guilty. Okay. John, with a hung jury, at least the feds have time to expose more. Trust me, the defense is not going to be happy with a hung jury. It sucks. Karen Reed's got to keep living this out. If she believes she's innocent and she believes they just won this trial, now they got to do it all over again. The last mistrial you covered was Melly. There was a questionable police investigation there as well, and there was a potentially individual holdout juror that other people accused of being like a Melly lover, plant, whatever. I don't know if that's true, but that's all it takes. Lita, do you think the jury is trying to figure out who caused John O'Keefe's death? It's not their job. I hope not. I mean, if they read the verdict form, it doesn't say, if it's not Karen Reed, then they finished. They don't have to figure out who else it was. Do you think it's because the judge strongly encouraged to not do a straw poll? No, most judges, or a lot of judges, do that and go through all the evidence. Maybe they feel obligated to take long. I don't think so. Obviously, I don't know for a fact, but I don't think so. Lady Law Sandra, can lawyers inquire if there are any specific issues or points of contention that are confusing or that are causing the delay? No. We're not allowed to go ask, hey, what are you guys talking about? What is your question? Although we'd love to know. We'd love to know. Gringa, wouldn't it have been far better for the defense just to disprove the charges and not suggest a cover-up? I mean, I've heard people say, yeah, I like providing the jury with what you think happened, but I like to couch it in, I don't have to prove it. I don't have to prove it. So I'll tell you what we think happened, what we think the evidence points to. I'll tell you that. But I want to be clear, we don't have to prove it. That's how I like couching it a little better. Could the Commonwealth have dismissed the charges with prejudice instead of bringing this to trial? Yes, especially with the FBI investigation. I still don't know how it came to trial. Yes, they could have. Alessandra, Karen is your client. What are you telling her right now? Hold strong. Keep the faith. There have been longer verdicts than this. Longer verdicts usually are an acquittal. And here's what I'll be honest with you. I say this to basically every client I've tried a criminal case on. I don't know that they're saying this, but I would say, even if it's a guilty verdict, it's not over. There were lots of issues in the case. Judge screwed this up. Commonwealth screwed this up. We got the FBI investigation, so it's not over even if it's a guilty verdict. So all is not lost, if that's what we hear. I am Groot. Juror number 13, unpopular opinion. That's why I never say anything. I live in Massachusetts. Juror number 13 here. I live in Massachusetts, and I actually think she's guilty. What if I was on that jury? Who knows? Frankie's mom, if it's hung, can they get a new judge, unbiased one? It's unlikely because then a new judge would have to learn the case. It could cause a delay. It could take longer, but it's also possible. I heard she rotated out but stayed on this case. Kristen, after releasing the jury today, they had a sidebar. What could that be about? Enjoy vacay. They could say, they could ask them to work longer tomorrow and not stop at 4:00. They could ask them if they want to work over the weekend and come deliberate over the weekend. They can talk about what they want to ask the jury if they want to ask them anything. Can't ask what the delay is or what the problem is or what do they need any questions answered. They can't say that. Brahmam, she knew exactly where he was. She hit him. She ignored the car collision avoidance system. 24 miles, 62 feet in bad weather, reckless, 90 pounds, 9 drinks, intoxicated, guilty. There are people that do believe this and might vote that way. Thank you, Azam. KK, why can't the jury know the expert witnesses came from the FBI? Because that would be prejudicial. It would look like the FBI was second-guessing these law enforcement agents or cops. It would look like they did something wrong, and it's just an investigation. They haven't even been accused necessarily of anything yet. Definitely haven't been convicted or found to have had some wrongdoing yet by the FBI. Nietzsche, her team looks worried. It's not giving confidence. KC, how can she go to prison when the feds know for a fact she didn't kill him? So we'll see. We'll see. We don't know what's going to happen with that yet. So that's still TBD. Just Jamie, hopefully it won't be like tonight's presidential debate where no matter what each side says, no minds will be changed. Yeah, and we might not understand anything better after it either, right? Amy's positive pathways. It's been 8 weeks. Lally was all over his place for his questioning. They couldn't talk as they went like us. For me, she's innocent. Physics. Yeah, they definitely not discussing it as hard. And if you think about all the stuff we've discussed, they haven't had the opportunity to do that. So I'm sure there could be hours of things potentially they are discussing back there right now, going through it, taking their time, talking through it. Maybe they're saying stuff like, holy cow, can you believe this witness or that witness? Or do you think the search happened at this time or that time? They could be asking each other all those questions right now. That's absolutely something that could be happening that we're not necessarily taking into account. Brandon, are they taking their time because the Commonwealth took so much of their time with this case and they proved absolutely nothing except speculation and BS? There's an element of because the trial took so long, maybe they think the deliberations take long. I don't know. Marianne, can the fact that both defense attorneys made rude comments influence the jury? If the jury doesn't like it, it's really hard to say, we've instructed them what you should do, what you shouldn't do, what is evidence, what's not. But they're people, they have human nature. The way the defendant looks and makes facial expressions, we know from other juror interviews. It's always what I tell my clients. The most important thing in the case is the two parties. When it's a civil case, the defendant and the plaintiff. Who do they like better? Who do they trust? And I think it's the same here. Lawyers, witnesses, parties. It makes a big difference what the jurors think of them. Lily, do you think maybe the Alberts go to one of the jurors and that's why they showed up the last day or got to one of the jurors? I don't think so. But I did see somebody post that thing from The Godfather with Michael Corleone sitting in the back of the courtroom, intimidating the witness in that trial. If it's a hung jury prior to retrial, can the defense request a change in venue and a different judge? They can request it. I don't know if that's already happened in this case. Katara, science. She never hit him. I tend to agree. Brenda, what happens if she is convicted and then the FBI present their findings that she did not hit him? That could be some additional findings on appeal that could potentially get the conviction thrown out. Brida Frankentruck. I'm very concerned a major media outlet is reporting 11 jurors left with their heads down with one smiling. I don't expect you to believe me, but we have a corrupt system here in Massachusetts. No surprise if it applies to the jury. I sure hope not. Dr. Sue, you don't look like a lawyer in a wife beater. I like to call it a tank top. And I agree with you. I probably don't look like a lawyer right now, but that's okay. And for the people out there that say this guy can't be a real lawyer, Exhibit A. Okay, take a picture of this. This is Exhibit A for you to try to prove that I'm not a real lawyer. Emily, why aren't jury deliberations recorded? Why are we keeping that hidden as if the jury can't be terrible too? Do we think the problems of the past have just disappeared? So we want it to be pure, right? We want them to be able to say what they think, say what they believe, do what's right, vote with conviction and stick to their vote. If it was recorded, they'd be worried about what people are going to say when they hear whatever's recorded. Stuff would get leaked. They'd be in more danger. It could influence the jurors in the future. It's the best system we can come up with. It's the best system we have. Is it perfect? No. What's your handicap? It's a 10.7 right now. My best ever is an 8.3. I played horrible for over a year to get it back up to a 10.7. I've just started to get the swing feeling right. So I'm playing twice this weekend, which is the most I've played in any month this year, mostly because of YouTube. Dana, civil defense paralegal in NOLA. You, by far, give the best non-biased opinion. Even my husband watches with me. Thank you for all you do. I love it. I love when people say, even my husband watches with me, because I know exactly what that's like, because there are certain things I just watch with my wife or listen to with my wife that she likes probably more than I do. Live Raw. Damon here. Does it usually take more than 1 day for a jury to come to a verdict if the verdict is not guilty or deadlocked? So I can't say there's any usual and customary amount of time for a jury. It's really different for every case. Christopher, I sat on a jury in Western Mass. FP and the alternates were randomly chosen for person. Seat numbers in one of those rotating bingo cards, they picked them from there. That's exactly what they did in this case. Deb, did AJ even explain that if there are two reasonable explanations, you must lean on the side of not guilty? AJ seemed to be speaking on to the outside audience and could have insulted them. I don't think he insulted anybody, but that is the one thing I said I would have changed. I would have read that very specific jury instruction that was just so perfect that the judge said, which is there are, just like you said, if there are two outcomes that are equally likely, it's not guilty. Jojo, they just reviewed all the documents to do the job. 45 people went on the stand. They take time versus cop that botched it. Potentially. AK, she had a sidebar before dismissing them when the jury left. Could she have said they are struggling, but I am sending them back to keep trying? She should not know if they're struggling. Mia's, I think they need to go through all the evidence. Could take days. Yes, jurors can't miss KR followers, visual, audible, enjoy, vacay. It's possible, but I'd be surprised if they were really going through exhibits for 15 hours. Peter, do you think it's a hung jury now? I don't. I still would not bet that. Reese's mom, DA in Florida, don't remember his name, thinks Commonwealth proved their case. Yeah, it's the guy in West Palm Beach, Ehrenberg, I think his name is. Nice guy, really nice guy. He is the DA in West Palm Beach, I'm pretty sure, the state attorney. Rangers fan. Funny, I was watching a movie the other night, and now that I'm a lawyer, so I was yelling at the TV. No, that's hearsay. Good thing I'm alone. Yeah. It's like kind of fun, kind of not as fun to watch a movie when you actually know what's correct, right? Peter, was the Koberger hearing today important? Yes, and we're going to talk about that probably. I'm going to record something tomorrow, Monday, this weekend. We'll see. Byron, do you think the McAlbert sitting behind JOK affects the jury? I hope not, but I hope not. John, you mentioned a few times regularly longer waiting time usually leads to not guilty verdicts, but the way the verdict form was written seems to be irregular in this case. And it's usually almost you say not guilty because they're the underdog. So I would consider it if people tell me, maybe it's not what you expect to happen as the longer time. It's all gotten really ugly. Dr. Wolf's wife and kids have been doxxed by friends of the McAlberts. Ugh. PMD, just got back from 3 weeks in Barcelona, checked in at the end of each day, Laura, for the win. Barcelona sounds beautiful. Being me, I wonder if the Alberts were there to bully the jury. I hope not. Why can't the jury have the cert report? It's hearsay. The report doesn't come into evidence. We never add anything into evidence after the case is over that didn't get added before. It's inadmissible. Can't come in. Melanie, I think they should have gotten more than an hour close. I agree with that. Rose, I am a fellow young attorney, also in Pinellas County. Awesome. I watch your channel and still learn so much. Thank you. That's awesome, Rose. I appreciate it so much when people say that. Kara, sorry if I missed it, but what are your thoughts on the verdict? What the verdict will be? Love your lives. My verdict will be not guilty in this case because of the physics and the science and the experts that the defense brought. That's why it would be my verdict. Thank you, Charlie, for gifting 5 memberships. Boricua, the verdict sheets definitely confused me. I'm glad AJ fought for the proper language. How did you feel about the comment Bev made to Karen Reed? It was outside the presence of the jury. I don't love facial expressions and laughing and stuff by my clients. I would be like, just chill, okay? I get it that you think you're right. I get it that we're pissed off. We're pissed off too. Injustice anywhere sucks, and we're fighting against it. But let's not be part of the problem. That's usually what I would say. Kate, do you think the defense team regrets not spending more time on defense and calling more of their witnesses? No. I think they could have done better if they would have had another 30 minutes of closing, which I think they should have gotten. How are people questioning physics in 2024? I get it, but people may think they're biased or something like that. Thank you for easing my anxiety. Needed to hear from a friend. I think one stubborn holdout. Yeah. Hear from the lawyer, right? J9, check out Amber stranded dog training as get. Okay, I'll have to look at that. KO, Uhtred, I'll admit, I'm wondering if it's a hung jury. I get it. How long are you in the courtroom following the verdict? Usually not long. We gather up all of our boxes. Actually, sometimes we do some cleanup before the verdict even comes. Sometimes there are issues afterwards we have to deal with, but not very long. Everybody wants to get out of there, especially after a long trial. Martin Eck. Right before KR trial, the same judge had a HJ called a mistrial hung jury. Could that pressure them to take longer to make sure they get it right? I don't know if there's pressure for them to take longer. Hung juries happen all the time. Enjoy vacation. It is suspenseful waiting. And when I say all the time, it's still a small percentage, but it doesn't mean the judge did anything wrong just because there's a hung jury. We had one this year, actually. Thank you, Lady Law. Paula Z. Did you happen to take a look at the video I sent you on AG regarding the dog bite? I saw people send it. I got to be honest, I have not had time to look through any of the videos or anything. I tried to follow Twitter and the video for this case to see if there was a verdict. And I did actually speed watch the Koberger hearing on 2x speed. As a fellow Central Floridian, you definitely look like a lawyer in Florida. Hey, now that's true, especially in summertime. It's like 1,000 degrees outside. Thank you, Yeti Man. Anna, does Bev have HX of always choosing 4-person? I have heard that is what she does, and that is her standard. I don't know. I've never watched another trial for hers. I do know there are jurisdictions where judges do pick the 4-person. This is not like the only case. Iron Rabbit. I think the jury is going over the evidence, trying to find out what the state saw in order to charge Karen Reed. So it is possible because sometimes jurors don't know what to do. So sometimes they do something that's not even really their job. So, that's partial. But will a guilty verdict affect whether Karen Reed can profit from the movie? I'd have to look at Massachusetts law if they have that Son of Sam law where you can't profit off your crime. Zach E. If it's a hung jury, will the lawyers charge less money to retry the case? They need to do less research/work. So usually not. Usually trial fees. So sometimes everybody sets it up different ways. You can either charge hourly, which obviously it's not cheaper. You can charge by the whole case as a whole, which then maybe it's cheaper. But usually if you charge for the case, then there's a trial fee per day, X amount of dollars, because you're taking away from your firm, you're taking away from your other clients. So if they're doing it that way, it's going to take the same amount of days, and they can charge the trial fee that way. What park did you go to today? Universal and Islands of Adventure. Haters screenshot. Look, lawyer is not a real lawyer. Does not bother me. That's not something I'm self-conscious or worried about them proving I'm not a real lawyer, because it's a pretty easy one for me to prove. Thank you, Anna, for gifting 5 memberships. And Tamara, thank you for the super chat. All right, I only have, I'm already a little over. I got 3 minutes left, so I'm going to hit as many questions as I can. Crazy Cat Queen. Hey, Peter, go meet Coach Norvell. He's so cool. So very cool. Somebody very close to all of us interviewed Norvell. I don't know if it's a secret or anything, so I'll ask him if I can share about it. And if so, we'll talk about that on maybe a members only live. He's so cool. My husband enrolled in paralegal school after hearing me talk about cases for 2 years. Go Knowles. Katie, another husband and wife pairing watching you here. Made him sub on his account. That's right, Katie. And thank you, husband, for subbing. Do you think this becomes a Forensic Files episode? I think it becomes a real movie, like a real movie, not a made-for-TV movie. At least Netflix. Polly, what's a lawyer look like? You look like Florida. That is true, and that's something I've been talking about. Lawyers don't look the same, right? My dad, I feel like, looks like a prototypical lawyer. Let's help get Peter to 400K gift memberships. Thank you, Charlie. Yeti Man, we also have to remember they only saw the evidence once and heard the testimony once. No rewind, no second look, no slowdown, no somebody coming and breaking it down on YouTube, no confusing things being answered or questions being answered by lawyers or judges or cops or experts or anybody you guys might be watching. We have to remember that. So it might not be as cut and dry and simple for them as it is for some of us. Peter, would you say to the jury if your own jury and Peter, what would you say to the jury if your own jury and juror doesn't agree? I would tell them to try to work together to see if they can come to an agreement. But if there are 2 jurors that are resolute in opposite positions, I would be apprehensive to try to really force them or push them, because if only one's on my side, I don't want to push that either. So you got to be careful. Please follow the Corey Richards case. I followed it a little bit. I'll definitely dive more in after this one's over. I think I'm going to do Alec Baldwin next. That's the most request trial that seems to be coming next. Let me know if you guys would want to see that. They make sure no juror was associated with the Alberts. Yes, I should say my guess would be that was a question in jury selection. Neuro Spicy. Who cares if people on the internet think she's guilty? Well, I've always said, like, a lot of people in these chats and even on the internet are representative of a cross-section of society. So if 10% think she's guilty on the internet, it's possible 10% of this jury thinks she's guilty. Did the Commonwealth prove it beyond a reasonable doubt? No. Right, but I don't think everybody agrees on that. Ophelia, there's way too much doubt, no evidence to explain the arm bruising, etc. I don't know what happened, but I could not convict beyond a reasonable doubt. What, if anything? Hit the like for the vacay. Yes, please do. Science, like magic, but real. Love seeing the chat freely acknowledging you're gorgeous. I feel validated. The face got me here, but the mind and heart got me to stay. Thank you, Peter. Well, how nice of you. Thank you. Auntie Bev's last big trial, murder cop Chesney, first result in a hung jury. Listen, I'm not going to blame her for a hung jury. I know if a cop had like a million hung juries, then potentially maybe that's an issue. But I mean, I've had a trial, the same judge, got a verdict, got a hung jury, two different cases. Nick, how would the jury fill out the form not guilty on murder 2 and hung on lesser included? So they would check, they wouldn't check not guilty, but if they checked not guilty on murder 2, and then on the manslaughter, if they started going through and trying to figure out if it was one of the bottom ones potentially, then they could say, we say not guilty, and they could tell them some way. But the way that the verdict form is set up, there's no real easy way to do it. And that's still an issue, which is why I do think boxes at each one would have been the best practice. KR rubbed me the wrong way with her body language and smirks. I still vote innocent. Do you ask people you represent to sit in a certain way and not stare? I usually try to tell them to be themselves, but it's so hard. They've never been in this situation. It's a lot of pressure, a lot of anxiety. So sometimes we will talk through, here's how you should deal with it. Here's what's normal. Don't be too high or too low, but it's okay if you react to things. If a hung jury, any chance both sides agree on Alfred? Yes, there is a chance. JD, I hope we don't have a hung jury. I don't think a retrial would help the defense, seeing how they did pretty good. I agree. And Jackson definitely didn't want Lally to get 2 bites at cross of those experts, and a second trial would do exactly that. Judge Newman picked the 4-person. Yeah, there were some issues there with the clerk. Piney, please cover the case of the former explorer, Sandra Birchman. It appears to involve some of the same people, originally classed as self-defense, now a murder by strangulation. It's sketchy AF. So yeah, you guys pick it. The more people that ask me about a specific case, the more likely I am to hit it. Danny B, thanks for gifting some memberships. Defense closing should have focused on reasonable doubt, maybe, I think. So here's what I'll say. It's easy to play Monday morning quarterback, which is a lot of what I do on this channel. I get it. Hindsight's 2020. In the moment, I will just tell you it was smooth. I think he hit 90% of everything he wanted to hit. It wasn't perfect, didn't bring in case law, but it was really good for a closing. It was impactful. It was memorable. And I think that's why I don't think it's going to be, just guilty across the board or guilty second-degree murder. I think it's going to hit with at least some of these jurors. Welcome, Allie, and thank you, Shannon. McCaw, my husband was set up by Ellie. He was 100% innocent, found guilty by jury. Juries scare me. It is true, and juries are scary, and we always tell clients, that's why a lot of cases settle, because you never know what a jury is going to do. The Menendez trial was hung, and they couldn't use a lot of their witnesses. Could this happen here? Yeah, depending on the delay. Or if judges feel certain things should go different ways. You should go to water parks tomorrow. I'm golfing tomorrow. They've got slides and pools and all sorts of stuff here that we're going to do too. Is the trial transcript evidence? No. It's a printout of the evidence, but the testimony is the evidence. Could it be because of the new verdict sheet? It could be. Maybe it makes them more confused. I don't know. I think the Karen Reed trial, more than 10K new subs. That'd be awesome. That's cool. We only need a couple K more. What chances we hear from jury members once done? I think we will. I don't know for a fact that we will, but I think we will. Brandy, people who think she's guilty are going after Crash Daddy's family. I know, that's horrible. Deciding between intent or involuntary. Okay. I mean, I think she didn't end with the car, so I don't think we have to get to the intent part the way I look at it, but I get why people could see it differently. Jocelyn, can dismissed jurors give interviews if they choose to before the verdict? Yes. Actually, I don't know if she told them to not do that. I didn't hear if there was a judge instruction, but I don't know of anything legally that would prevent that. Karen is not guilty. If Karen is found guilty, will she be able to have Jackson Unetti defend her if there's an appeal, if she pays him? My husband and I learned so much from you. Thank you, Carrie. If she pays him and hires him for the appeal, then yes, they can represent her for the appeal. Amber Fox, if a jury is hung, will they pull them then? So different judges in courtrooms and lawyers do this different way. We always ask for it. We kind of want to know. Some judges will not allow it. Some jurors don't want to. They usually can't be forced to, but if they're willing to, I've had that happen in a civil case where we ended up settling the case because of how the jury was polled. Before or watching you from Ethiopia, guilty. I learned a lot from you the last few days. Now I'm practicing law in Ethiopia and stuff. That's cool, Bella. Brooklyn Basement, juror court pressure to come to a verdict feels ick. Yeah, I hope not. Ben, watched 12 Angry Men recently. Me too. The hero is really a villain. He went to the crime scene and gathered evidence he used to convince the other jurors. I did a little breakdown of this, I think, on one of the members only lives. Defense reconstruction experts, more, I meant. Oh, yeah. Yeah, potentially. That was their strongest evidence, I thought. Sad, I still don't think we know who killed him. I agree. If a hung jury, good luck finding new jurors that don't know anything about the case. Yeah, that's what we were saying about the Depp Heard. People thought maybe hung, and it'd be impossible to find people around the world that didn't hear about that case. Derek, love hearing your perspective. Happy vacay. What a better super chat than this one to go out on. You guys are the best. I appreciate you so much. Please hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe. It's all we got. We'll still take time to do lives whenever we can, record videos, whatever it is. If we get a verdict tomorrow, I probably won't be able to live stream it. If I can, I will. If not, you will get my reaction. So please, even though if you see it, come here, talk about it with me. Let me know what you thought. Let me know if you were surprised, and etc. And Charlie, can we do a poll mid-through to get different data? I'm not able to do it. I'm by myself on this live in the hotel room, so I'm not able to throw up a poll right here, but maybe next time. All right, folks, that's all we got. I am officially out of here. Thanks for watching another episode of The Lawyer You Know. If you enjoyed the episode, please hit the thumbs up and share with your friends who may be interested here on YouTube. And don't forget to subscribe. You can also follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok. And don't forget to check out the Lawyer You Know podcast with new seasons dropping every quarter. If you have a case you want to talk to us about, if it's a personal injury case, wrongful death, catastrophic injury, car accident, or slip and fall case, please email us at lawyeryouknow@gmail.com. And of course, all these links I just mentioned are included in the description below on this episode and every episode. So until next time, this is Peter Tragos, The Lawyer You Know.